This is a general reading for entertainment purposes only. Watching my content does not constitute an advisory relationship such as therapy or legal counsel. I am not a certified medical or therapeutic professional, and my readings do not constitute professional advice. My readings are for confirmation of what you already intuitively know for yourself, not to get answers from me. General readings like this are like forecasting the weather for the entire planet. I can say that it is summer in the northern hemisphere, but summer looks very different from region to region. So please use your best judgment, take what resonates and leave the rest. And now let's get back to the video. Thank you. Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Bee and I am the Moon Lodge Mystic. I'm here to talk about the new moon that's coming up this Saturday in Capricorn. And I'm using sidereal coordinates, so this is Vedic astrology, and traditionally Vedic astrology uses the sidereal zodiac. So if you're confused about why I'm saying the new moon is in Capricorn instead of Aquarius, it's because I'm using sidereal astrology. So this new moon is happening on Saturday, the 21st. And the nakshatra it's going to be occurring in is called Uttara Ashadha. First things first, the moon is fallen in Capricorn. Capricorn is opposite of Cancer, which is the moon's ruling sign. And any planet that rules a sign, the sign opposite it is its sign of fall or detriment. And this is because the sign that a planet represents is its sign where it's most comfortable and where it really its natural strengths come out. And the sign that is opposite that sign is opposite. It contains qualities that are kind of in conflict or are polarizing to the other sign that sits opposite it. So, and you can see, like Cancer, this card shows that Cancer is associated with sensitivity, home, feeling of security. This is like your family, feeling really cozy and attached to others, whereas Capricorn is about detachment and solitude. This is where we really focus on our discipline and where we're working hard, whereas this is where we feel really cozy and warm with others. So when the moon is in Capricorn, and especially when we're having a new moon where it's a dark moon, I've spoken on this before, when the moon is dark, it's considered that its power is at its weakest, whereas a full moon is the most powerful, strongest moon that we have. So a dark moon and a dark moon in Capricorn feels a lot more introspective. It can feel kind of sluggish or like there's a lack of warmth going on. So you're less focused on connecting with other people and more focused on yourself. This could even look like depression, or depending on how things pan out in your chart, this could be about being really, really focused. Saturn rules Capricorn, and Saturn tends to bring us very focused feelings. So it's either focused on the negative, which creates depression, or it's like focused on the work and the discipline that we have to do. And the sun is going to help a little bit because the sun is very disciplined in the sign of Capricorn. Venus is also in Capricorn right now, but she's about to leave Capricorn. She's in the final degree of Capricorn and is going to be joining Saturn in Aquarius, which is a big shift that happened recently. In the last 2 weeks, we've had Mars and Mercury go from retrograde motion to direct motion, and then we've had Saturn leave Capricorn and enter Aquarius, and this is like Saturn has fully left Capricorn. He's not going to retrograde back in anymore. He's just on his way into Aquarius. These are some pretty big shifts, especially leading into the new moon. When the moon was traveling through Scorpio, today when I'm filming, which is Thursday, The moon is now in Sagittarius in Mula, and for the last few days she was in Scorpio, and with Mars going into direct motion, Mars is making a direct aspect into Scorpio. So during that time, the moon is already really vulnerable in Scorpio. We start to feel vulnerable. And with the aspect for Mars, we could have been feeling quick to anger, really aggressive. And that could have even been kind of like overwhelmingly angry, like, wow, why am I getting so angry? I can't let this go. That type of thing, like grudging. Or it could have been looking like coping. Because we have the Mars in Taurus, we could have been impulsively like trying to cope with uncomfortable feelings through indulging in some vices, like maybe eating junk food or going, shopping therapy and stuff like that. So trying to use luxury and indulgence to kind of stuff away those intense feelings that can be brought up when the moon is in Scorpio. Another thing to note is that when Saturn moved into Aquarius, Saturn was also making an aspect to Scorpio. So again, that's adding that pressured feeling. Saturn brings a lot of heaviness and pressure. So I guess I know for me personally, when the moon was in Scorpio, I was feeling more spicy, like I was more quick to anger, and I was getting really irritable with others, and I wasn't necessarily feeling depression. But I've also spoken to some others where during that time they were feeling really sluggish and like they had no motivation. That would have been the effect of Saturn making that aspect to the moon, whereas the quick to anger and like the and stuff was more like Mars on moon. So there was some pressure going into this new moon. And now that the moon is going through Sagittarius, we're kind of releasing all those pent-up feelings that were happening, and the planets are moving on, and we're kind of going through a big transition shift right now. During the last lunar cycle, we were really focused on clarifying our beliefs and what's guiding us forward in our life, like what inspires us to take action, and what's the goal that for this year and what we want to bring into reality right now. And now that we're shifting our lunar cycle into Capricorn, we're going to be looking at, putting your money where your mouth is. It's not enough to just think about what inspires you and what would be nice, like, idealism and optimism, like, oh yeah, that's really inspiring, I really believe that. Capricorn is where we're challenged to be like, okay, so how do I act in integrity with these ideals, making sure that the way I'm living and the way I'm proceeding forward in life is actually in integrity with the ideals that I've identified while, we were all transiting through Sagittarius. On that note, we moved from Purva Ashadha into Uttara Ashadha. When we were dealing with Purva Ashadha, I talked a little bit about that nakshatra and how that is really the planning phase where we're developing our strategy. And Uttara Ashadha is where we implement that strategy and move forward. And so now that we've got all these planetary motions going direct and transitioning into, new signs and everything, people are feeling ready to start acting on their goals. But with the transition of Venus from Capricorn to Saturn and the conjunction that they're going to be forming, you might still feel some delays and some obstacles, but it's not going to be too bad. It's going to last like maybe a few days after this new moon. So heading into next week, the next week might get off to a slow start, but then you might really start feeling that ball moving. And I want to bring it back a little bit, back to the transits. The Saturn entering Aquarius is a really big one. Saturn spent the last 2 or 3 years in Capricorn, where we really feel focusing on like what's going wrong in our lives and how we need to fix it and what we need to apply ourselves to. And it's like really hard work, and it can feel really demoralizing at times. We had like the pandemic happen while Saturn was in Capricorn. This is like that isolation where we had to be in lockdown. Saturn in Aquarius is way more uplifting. This is his, what we call his Mula Trikona, which is where planets do some of their best work. It's not quite the same as exaltation, but this is where Saturn is doing more inspiring and uplifting work. And Aquarius deals a lot with our society, humanitarianism, technology, and culture. It's the people that come together, and all the diversity of ideas and innovation. So this is where Saturn gets a lot of his humanitarian affiliations, is from his rulership over Aquarius. So this new moon, again, is very introspective because of its presence in Capricorn. And it's really the best time to be reflecting on what you need to do to be the person that embodies the ideals that you identify during the Sagittarius transits. Capricorn and Saturn in general really pushes us to act in integrity, and really live up to our values. It's not enough to just be inspired. We have to walk the walk. We can't just talk the talk. We have to do the walk. So this is where we're doing the real hard work, and that can even look like shadow work. So you might have identified like what really inspires you, and then you might be coming up on feelings or inner experiences that contradict with the ideals that you aspire to bring out in the world. And this new moon is going to kind of illuminate some of that for you, and maybe you're going to rub up on some things that you don't feel comfortable admitting about yourself, where you notice that you're being a hypocrite, or where you have just some, feelings of bitterness or resentment that really get in the way of bringing your light out into the world. This is a period of time where you identify and work on that. Okay, so now let's tie these transits back into the new moon and the nakshatra it's taking place in. I mentioned before the nakshatra of this new moon is Uttara Ashadha. This is part of the Ashadha pair. The Ashadhas, the word Ashadha is the invincible one, and Purva means before and Uttara means after. So Uttara Ashadha is after Invincible One, the one that's coming. When we talked about Purva Ashadha in the previous lunar cycle, this was, before invincibility, before the moment of victory, basically, where you are planning and strategizing and pooling together your resources so that you can start charging forward towards your goal. Uttara Ashadha is, you've launched your strategy and have started executing it, and you start to see the results of that. Both of these nakshatras are represented by elephant tusks, and so the image that you get is that these two nakshatras paired together are an elephant that's charging. And elephants in India are very revered. They are considered very powerful and unstoppable creatures, and that's part of that is the association with Lord Ganesha, who has who's being depicted in this card. Lord Ganesha has an elephant head. He is a deity in India, and he's associated with overcoming obstacles. He's the ultimate remover of obstacles. And so when we're talking about the Ashadha nakshatras and the association with elephants, this is about breaking through any obstacle and going after what you want, no matter what comes in your way. You break through it, you keep applying yourself to your goal, moving forward. Nothing can stop you. So this is about really applying yourself and committing yourself to your goal and not giving up no matter what happens. This nakshatra, and really both these nakshatras are really heavily associated with tenacity and just utterly, giving yourself over to your objective. But where the Purva Ashadha was more about this like feminine power where you're bringing together people and resourcing and coming up with ideas, the Uttara Ashadha is like the part where you're really taking and doing the action. The deity of Uttara Ashadha is the Vishvadevas, which literally means all the divinity or all the gods. So that's part of where this nakshatra is really considered like undefeated, because it's what happens when you take all of divinity and bring it together united under a common purpose. And when you do that, you're unstoppable. There's a kind of camaraderie here where people of all kinds of backgrounds and skills and abilities are coming together to achieve one thing. And to that end, it really helps. The lesson here is that like victory is assured when everyone is on the same team. So if you've identified a goal that is really important to you, like maybe you're trying to start a business or you're trying to do something with family or something like that, not viewing other people as your enemy and trying to figure out how to move in such a way that everyone benefits, that you're acting in service of the greater good of all. And when we're talking about a new moon, again, this is more introverted than extroverted. So it's, you may not be thinking so much about, it might not materialize as interactions with other people or events moving on the outside. This is more internal work. So this is kind of facing our inner demons that are creating obstacles to us engaging with others in a way that's more cooperative so that we can actualize our goals. So if you struggle with feelings of like inferiority or insecurity, or like feeling like you need to compete with others in order to win, or like victory means that you have to defeat other people or dominate other people or be better than other people, I'm bringing this up because this is something that I personally struggle with as well. Kind of getting to the bottom of those feelings is what's going to be the key to victory here, is kind of identifying like what's keeping me from relating to others as if we're all on the same team, as if my victory and their victory doesn't come at the expense of each other, where we all are being uplifted. And this is where the shadow work comes into play. Sitting with yourself and identifying the part of yourself that feels bitterness or envy, or like you're competing with others, or that everyone's better than you, or that you have to be better than others in order to be successful. And kind of ask yourself, like, what's the story there? What happened to me or that part of myself to make that part feel that way? And then kind of feel compassion for that part of yourself, because usually there was some kind of trauma or painful experience that produced those feelings in the first place. And the problem here is that when that happened to you, you didn't get the loving compassion you needed at the time to deal with those experiences. So you learned to cope by needing to compete or dominate or measure yourself against everyone else. And this is really, with Saturn moving into Aquarius, we're really coming into unity consciousness. Aquarius is all about the unity and the oneness. And how can we transcend the separative or the, dual thinking and try and come into unity consciousness where we are all one and we all benefit from each other succeeding. And nobody, one person's success doesn't mean something's being taken away from you. So I hope that was clear. In summary, basically this new moon, leading into it, we might be feeling a little prickly and a little withdrawn from interactions with others right now. We might be feeling like we're measuring against each other. Like, how do I measure up against these people, rather than thinking about how we're all contributing our own unique essence to the universe, and that everybody has a place, that there's enough space for everyone to exist and to flourish in this world. And if we take the time to really reflect and kind of face the part of ourselves that resist unity consciousness, that resist that oneness, and take the time to tend and heal to those parts, send healing to those parts, and be compassionate towards yourself. Don't shame yourself. That's a big tendency in Capricorn, is to like shame yourself, but that doesn't really resolve anything. That just perpetuates the bad feelings, and we want to feel uplifted. And so let's move on to the oracle cards. I did draw some cards, and the first one we're starting off with is listen. When I see this card, I'm drawn to the ear and the spiral, but it got me thinking, the nakshatra that comes after Uttara Ashadha is Shravana, which is what the sun and everyone's going to be moving into as the lunar cycle progresses. The lunar cycle is going to end, or the full moon's going to happen in Ashlesha in Cancer. And by that time, the sun will probably have either traveled through Shravana or have just exited Shravana. And Shravana is represented by an ear, and about listening and knowledge through listening and being open to listening. So it's kind of like there's a sense of humility there that comes with Capricorn energy. So the other thing that comes up is the stillness of the new moon. So sit and really reflect and be open to hearing maybe some uncomfortable truths about yourself that you didn't want to acknowledge before. That's really the essence of shadow work, is that we're trying to open ourselves up in a non-judgmental way towards facing parts of ourselves that we don't like about ourselves. So listen. This face is very, it's kind of somber, but not, well, it's just somber. It's just there listening, but in a kind of objective way, I guess is what's coming to me. So try and get an objective view of yourself. The other cards that want to come out is you're very close to achieving your goal, and don't let pride get in your way. So I think this is really supporting what I was saying earlier about unity consciousness, and really when we shut out others and make everything about how we have to be better than other people in order to be successful, that's like a pride thing. And you might, when you operate from that point of view, you might honestly not be able to hear or listen, or keep your, like, I'm getting this image of like keeping your ears peeled. You'll miss things that may be able to come and help you, because you're so focused on elevating yourself above everyone else that you're alienating yourself from potential allies who might want to be helping you and supporting you in achieving your goal. But in general, like, you are very close, and that's really literally when we're in Uttara Ashadha, we are very close to our goals. This is the point of, like, we are achieving victory. and we're breaking through our barriers and going after it. We have some other oracle cards. I was actually surprised 4 came out when I was trying to only do 3. But first we have Strength, the ancient oak spirit. And then we have Guardians of the Land, protection. And then we have Dragonfly spirit, change. And then we have Bee spirit, prosperity. So overall, I think this is a really auspicious time. You know, it might get off to a little bit of a sluggish start where we really have to clean out, you know, our perspective, the way we think and mentally approach our situation, and making sure that our actions are aligned with our integrity. But generally, you know, you are protected. You have the strength to overcome whatever challenges are coming your way, which is really truly the essence of the Ashadha nakshatras. And things are changing. You know, we are in a big transitional period. Saturn going over to Aquarius, that's a big change. And these planets going direct, and Mars is finally moving forward, so we finally feel like we can start acting and progressing and moving towards our targets. The overall, you know, message that I'm getting is that everyone's got this in the bag, and there might just be like a couple things here or there to be mindful of. That's more on a subtle type of realm where we need to be really careful to listen and be open to listening and hearing feedback about ourselves, because all of that is really going to be in service of achieving this prosperity. Very happy to see the bee spirit here. Of course, I love bees, but it's just really like, I feel like things are moving in a really positive direction. So even if you kind of start to feel this, you know, this downtroddenness or whatever about the Capricorn energy that we're moving through, or, you know, the negativity that we were experiencing in Scorpio, that thing's not going to hold anyone back. Everyone's ready to just really charge forward. And our final card shocked me when it came out, but this is from the deck about the 4 Agreements, which is a book, a really nice book. I recommend it. But part of that book is that there's 4 agreements that you make in order to pretty much live a centered life where you are spiritually, you know, aware and just living with peace in your heart, I guess is one way to sum it up. But one of those agreements is be impeccable with your word, which is pretty much being aware of the impact that your language has on your mindset and the world around you. The way that you perceive your world is affected by the language that you use. And the card that we got was Speak with Integrity, Be Impeccable with Your Word. And on the back it says, say only what you mean. Avoid using the word to speak against yourself or to gossip about others. Use the power of your word in the direction of truth and love. I think this card truly gives us direct advice on how to handle this next lunar cycle. And honestly, it's something that we should do all the time, but the energies of the planets right now are really emphasizing it now. Speak with integrity. Make sure that the energy you're putting out in the world really truly reflects what you want to be putting out in the world. And in the sense that we're on an introspective leg of the lunar cycle, that means making sure that internally, you know, you're aligned with what you're speaking out to. So it's easy enough to speak out the way that we think we ought to be, but making sure that the inner world reflects that as well. So I think we've had a lot of focus on making sure that everything external, you know, I think we've got like a grip on that, a good grip on that, but just doing some internal cleanup work to really round everything out. And that's it. I mean, I think we're on a really great path towards success. Thank you for appearing on my channel and listening to me. I hope that this was helpful. Yeah, felt a little spacey today. And honestly, getting this video started was my own experience with overcoming obstacles. I had a bunch of things come up trying to get everything set up. So I hope that I came across clear and that you were able to hear me. Thank you so much. Enjoy this new moon, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.